Thank you very much, Dion. Lovely introduction there. You covered all the most of what I've done. Yeah.
Did you call me Dion?
Gian?
Yeah. Well, I thought you said Dion.
Would you like Dion?
No,
I'll do whatever you want, Gian. I'm just trying to keep you happy.
I prefer Gian. I thought maybe you had a flashback to
No,
Dion.
no.
Right. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank
Although we wanted you here half an hour ago, but you wouldn't know what it's like to be on a live show and have the guest not turn up right away, would you?
Yeah, I've been through that, and I hate being a part of that. Did I hold you up for a half hour?
No, it was great. We
Because
had
the
Murray
traffic
McLaughlin.
was deeper than I thought.
It's such a pleasure.
But I love listening to that fella singing.
Murray McLaughlin.
Yeah, he was great.
Lovely, huh?
Yeah.
It's so many people have been excited about you coming in here. You've got a lot of people who've been following you over the years and who are major fans. It's just a few weeks since you had your last show with Kelly Ripa. It seemed like there were some pretty emotional moments. What's your strongest memory of that final show?
Well, you remember that the night before the show, Katie Couric, on a show she did about me, we were sitting in a restaurant, and she said, that last show is going to be very emotional, and you're going to cry. I said, no, I don't think so. Oh, no, I know you have to cry. It'll be very strong. It'll all hit you at once that you are leaving, walking out that door, and you're going to cry. I said, I'm not going to cry. She said, I'll bet you $10. I said, you're on. And did I cry?
She owes you $10.
That's right.
But
all of a sudden, I can't find Katie Couric anywhere.
She's hiding.
Disappeared.
But was she right? Did you
No,
feel
I
the
didn't.
emotions welling up?
I felt the emotions, but I wasn't going to cry over it. It's something that I decided over the years that sooner or later it was going to happen. And I'd rather do it now while I still can move on, maybe, and do something else besides that. You know, Gian, 28 and a half years doing the same thing in the same room with the same Gelman can drive a man crazy.
But if you've done those 17,000 hours, that
Yes.
world record in front of the camera, and you still want to do it, what is it about television that you love so much?
I think the excitement of it, and I never got over the fact that, because I was raised in radio days, when you heard radio and you had to just put the whole picture together of what you were hearing. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I never got over the fact that, my gosh, here they are doing what I'm listening, but I can see it. I thought it was just remarkable. And I wanted to be a part of it, but I never knew what my talent was. And eventually, I learned what it was watching Jack Parr, who told me when I watched him that what he did was simply talk about what he had experienced last night, where he had been, who he had met, who he got a letter from. Just talked about those things. And I felt I could do that because I used to do that as a kid growing up in New York City. I would talk to my friends and make little jokes out of what our experiences were. And that tipped me off, and so I've been with that ever since.
You get a charge out of it? You get an excitement out of it? I mean, does it feel like, I don't want to be melodramatic about it, but does it feel like a drug? Like you being in front of the audience, being on TV?
Gian is turning it to Katie Couric right in front of me.
Which would mean you owe me $10.
There is a certain push in that whole experience, and especially when you have a live audience. And, you're trying to capture them with the story. And if they respond or if they laugh or if they applaud, whatever it is exciting. And you want that to happen. And that's part of it all.
What happens when you don't have it?
That's a letdown.
The last month?
I always look at Kelly and say, what's wrong with you? No, just kidding, Gian. What happens when they don't laugh?
No, what happens when you're not going in there every day now? I mean, are you missing that?
I've been so busy on this tour. First all across America, and then last night I flew up here, and I did everything wrong, Gian. I got driven to the airport, LaGuardia. Mm-hmm. I got there, and I discovered I don't have my passport.
Right.
Got to go back to the apartment and hopefully get back in time for the plane. The plane's a little bit late. They're always late at LaGuardia. So I speed back to the apartment. Run upstairs, get the passport, come down, get in the car, race for the second time to the airport.
Right.
And the plane was still late. And then I go in there, and Air Canada does not have a lounge at LaGuardia.
That's right.
They just have seats.
Right.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
So they said, we want to shield you from people. We don't want everybody coming up and looking at you. So
Right.
they put me in a little cell of a room with a lot of chairs.
You were confined. Yeah.
I was confined.
Yeah.
But in a nice way, and I felt good. And all of a sudden the door opened, and in came 35 high schoolers from Nova Scotia. And one
Not that
yelled-
there's anything wrong with
Nothing wrong with
Yes,
that.
yeah.
But one of them yelled out, Regis. And another one yelled out, can I take your picture? You know the cell phone with the picture in it?
Yes,
Can
yeah.
drive you crazy. You know that, Gio.
that. Yes, Regis.
So I said, well, and the teacher said, why don't we all take a class picture with Reed? So, and then we took the picture, and then
Right.
they were this fun. Like, were you on with me?
Yes.
That's how close they were to me. Staring, watching every move Regis made. It was really embarrassing.
Right.
Then my
so
phone
it was a
rang.
traumatic experience
Yes.
getting to Canada.
And then
yeah.
my phone rang in the bag. I had a little carry-on bag.
Yes.
And I reached in there, and there was my dub kit or my toilet kit, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And I pulled that out and put it aside, and I found the phone, and I answered the phone call, put the phone back, closed up the briefcase.
Forgot to put the
There you
toiletries
go.
in there.
On the plane,
Right.
Regis, you forgot your dub kit. We're going to try to get it to you on the next flight. Well, it's just
Right. It's just one thing after
yes,
another.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you mentioned Kelly a few moments
Yes.
ago. One of the things that you talk about in this book, and that I wanted to ask you about, because you have separate chapters related to some of the people you've been close with. You've been known for this remarkable chemistry that you had with Kathy Lee Gifford, and then with Kelly Ripa. What have you learned is the secret to a strong on-air chemistry like that?
Well, you've got to actually, I think I've had that kind of chemistry with all of the co-hosts that I've had, and I've had a few others besides those two. Those two have remained the longest and are the best known. I think you've got to study their personality, know what brings them out, where they would be the strongest, and you use that in your repartee with them. Be sure you don't exclude them, except when you are telling whatever story you want to tell. Then it's up to you to sell that story. But by and large, I had great chemistry with both of them.
So much of it is about the ease that you seem to have on television, on stage, on when we see you. Martin Short was here yesterday, and he was saying the trick for him is just absolutely being comfortable. If he's comfortable on stage, the audience loves it, and they're comfortable. So you seem fearless, but in your book, it's striking the number of times, Regis, you talk about being incredibly nervous, whether about meeting a personal hero like Dean Martin, or starting a new job, or making an important career decision. How do you reconcile those two aspects of your personality?
Well, I think I calmed down in front of the camera, in front of the microphone. But yes, there were certain instances in my life where you do meet someone for the first time that you've admired and watched and never thought you would meet. One night with Bing Crosby, another time with Dean. And you want to entertain them. I mean, you want to say more than just hello. It's nice to meet you, And with Dean Martin, I kind of loused that up real good. I saw him on my high school prom at the Copacabana in New York City. And I just never forgot him. I mean, I'd never seen a guy like that. That great looking, that great voice. That ability to not only feed Jerry Lewis his lines, but to be as funny as Jerry.
Right.
I mean, he was the all-around guy. And I was only 18. It was my first time seeing him. I had heard him sing on radio. And I walked outside across the street off Fifth Avenue there, and I said, I'm going to follow that guy for the rest of his life. And I did. And so the years go by, but, Dean was very elusive. He was always playing golf. He didn't want to be seen by anyone. He really was very private. And then one day I go to this trailer. I was there to do a shoot on Burt Reynolds' Cannonball movie, and Dean and Sammy were a part of it. And so I get there, and there's Dean's agent. He says, Dean's inside. Why don't you go in and talk to him? There's nobody in there. I said, wow, first time alone with Dean. I mean, I had been with him on certain events and occasions, but never alone. So I went in, and there he was, and I sat down opposite him, and I told him pretty much how I had followed his career. And then, like an idiot, Gian, I got involved with a certain song that meant a lot to me because growing up, after the high school prom, I was in college, home for the summers, got a job in a plastics factory, putting together Venetian blinds. It was midnight to 8 in the morning, the dead zone. And I didn't want to go. I hated the midnight run. I hated putting blinds together. I hated the whole thing. But to get me ready, I would play a record I had of Dean's. And it was called One Foot in Heaven. Mm-hmm. And like an idiot, I tell him this story.
Right.
And he says, what song was that? And I said, One Foot in Heaven. That record was made in the mid-'30s. It's now 1980.
Right.
And Dean Martin has been through a lot in his career.
Right.
So he said, gee, I don't remember. Why don't you sing it for me? I said, okay. So I said, 1 foot in heaven on Angel Street, and with the other one I walk on air. And I sang the whole bloody song to him.
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, you know, Regis, that's a nice song, but I never sang it. And so I didn't want to argue with him because I wanted to go on to other things. And just then there's a knock on the door. Ready for you, Dean. Right. And that was the end of my time with Dean.
That was your time with.
Oh, my.
Well, this is your thing, this self-deprecating thing that you do. I mean, you often are the butt of jokes. Kelly Ripa and Kathy Lee would often give you a hard time on live TV. Even the people you count as friends, David Letterman,
sure.
Don Rickles, often make jokes at your expense. You seem to actually like being teased. Is that part of the Regis character?
Well, I don't mind if that's what gets everybody a laugh, and everybody does get their laughs when I come up like, the lost child or something. I don't mind it at all. I think it's all part of the business of comedy. And so I don't mind being the fall guy in that. In fact, I kind of enjoy it sometimes.
Does it ever cross the line? Do you ever sort of think, all right, I'm a legend in this business, enough with the jokes?
Well, you notice that your TD Bank, but I don't know if you see the TD Bank commercials up here in Canada that we do for the TD banks in New York City and in America.
Okay.
But in those little vignettes, yeah. I'm always, the moron, has a problem, can't fathom what.
Right.
And she, of course, becomes my teacher and my savior. But it's funny.
You're all right with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You leaving the show, the live morning show, you've been talking a lot in a lot of the press. I was watching some interviews you've been doing, and it's very important for you to let people know that you're not retiring. Why is that so? Why does it bother you seemingly that people might think that?
Well, I wanted to explain that I wanted to move on into something else in our business. So I wasn't retiring, but it had no effect because everywhere I go, people say, how do you like retirement?
Right.
And you're getting bored, and frankly, I've had this book tour, and so I haven't had a chance to get bored because it's only been 2.5 weeks. Yeah, I tried to urge that. I tried to sell that when I said goodbye, but it didn't work. They still think I'm retired.
But does it bother you, with the idea of Regis not being in our living rooms every day bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me. I feel a little free after doing it for 28 and a half years. That opening segment, Gian, was all spontaneous and ad lib. She never knew what I was going to say. Yeah. That's the way I liked it, and I made it like that. And I never knew what she was going to say, and it was just that made you work harder to meld the whole thing together and to get laughs and to keep the audience happy and let us both tell our stories. I don't miss that. There was pressure. There was pressure getting that on every day and making it work. And I feel like...
you weren't just doing a show every day. You were doing an unscripted show.
The first 20 minutes, totally unscripted, yeah.
And I know you've talked about you're working on a new show, potentially in prime time, a new kind of family reality show.
It keeps coming up. There are different things that people have told me about and that I'm considering, but I haven't signed anybody's contract. Which we're still just talking about it.
But do you feel? I mean, in the last couple of years, some real giants of television have moved on. Larry King, Dan Rather. I mean, both still doing things, but not doing their regular gig. Do you feel like we're witnessing a shift? Is this an end of an era for a certain?
I think it is. Yeah, I think guys of a certain age are beginning to peel off and say goodbye. And Larry King was one of them, and I am too, and Dan. And so it's time, really, for the younger group to come in. I mean, it's a whole different change in our society and our culture, in what kids laugh at. I mean, I get a big kick out of Larry King. I miss him. I really do miss him on the show, even though I think Piers Morgan is excellent. He's good news, man. I just saw Piers the other day. But Larry King, I have a favorite story. Are you game? Do we have enough time?
We got like 2 minutes.
Oh, I can't tell you the story, but you would love the story, Gian.
Okay,
Larry King, starting radio.
We'll go to the punchline.
Well, Larry King gets a job, his first job, in a small town outside of Miami, where he's supposed to get experience.
Yeah.
He's there for 3 weeks. He's doing the morning shift. The manager comes to him and says, Larry, we need you for the midnight shift. The midnight guy wants Monday night off. Larry's eager to please, says, I'll be there. So Larry starts the show at midnight.
Sure.
And you may know that, especially in the 50s, guys with great voices like yours have a following of women who get romantically involved with the guy only because his voice sounds so soothing and so sexy. And so Larry King is doing the deep voice. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. And the phone rings about 1:45. And the voice says, Larry, I love you, and I love your voice. Now, Larry King is all alone in this radio station.
Right.
There's no one else but him. He's the keeper of the station.
Right.
Larry, please come see me. I want you, and I want you now. Larry says, but I can't get out of here till 6 o'clock. Can you wait till 6? She says, are you kidding? At 6? I'm getting up and going to work. She says, Now, I'm going to leave the light on. Here's the address. I'm 10 blocks away.
All right.
Okay? So time is running out. Larry goes into the office where they have all the records and pulls out Harry Belafonte doing 33 and a half uninterrupted minutes at Carnegie Hall. And he puts that on.
And it goes.
And it goes.
Right.
And anyway, I got 30 seconds to finish this.
You got less. Go ahead. Yeah.
And Larry goes down. He gets out of the car. And he hears the song all the way down. Then he feels he's free. The station will be okay. And there she is. She's behind the screen, and she's looking, and she's wearing a white negligee. And he opens the door, and she's got the song on too. And the song is saying, down the way where the nights are gay, where the nights are gay.
Skipping.
They're skipping. The music, the needle is stuck. Larry King freezes. My God, there goes my job. Right. He turns around and runs out and gets back to the studio, and nobody calls, and she never called again.
Right. That's your favorite Larry King
That's my favorite
story.
Larry King. That's all I got.
And listen, before I let you go, in your book you talk about struggling to figure out what your special talent is. You just said it earlier in this conversation. I think that's part of your self-deprecating thing. I think you know where you've got these tools. Joey Bishop once told you that you were a great listener.
Yeah.
After 5 decades in this business, Regis, is that something you figured out, what it is that has made you such a star?
Well, I think it's part of the business is somebody's got to stay there and listen, and then do something with it. And he had watched me interview Joe Pine the night before, who was a tough guy in Los Angeles, a tough radio broadcaster. And he liked the way it came off because Pine was almost, so irascible you couldn't deal with him. But it came from the listening. And I never thought of it that way because people had asked me, what is your talent? And finally, I got a guy who said, you were talented. And I said, really, Joe, what's my talent? And he said, after a long, lengthy pause, you are a great listener. A great listener. When I heard it, I laughed because I was expecting I could tap dancer, something. A listener, Gian. And then finally, I understood what he said, and he was right.
It's such a great pleasure to get to talk to you.
How nice to talk to you. I really enjoyed it. And I'm enjoying Toronto here. I'm going to sign my book at Indigo tonight.
That's right. Yes, you are.
I'm on top of the heap.
And listen, we'll try and keep you away from packs of schoolgirls.
35.
With cameras pointed close
35 staring at Regis.
Thank you so much for this.
Gian, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.